In this presentation, I will summarize ongoing initiatives in our research laboratory relative to sensors, AI, and digital innovation as they relate to surgical robotics. This first slide shows our tele-robotic system, Neuroarm, positioned at the surgical site for microsurgery. Go to the next slide. The surgeon has relocated to a sensory immersive workstation where the sight, sound, and touch of surgery are recreated. Before I proceed, I will show this slide from 1932 of a surgeon, Harvey Cushing, father of neurosurgery, removing a brain tumor. The slide shows medical innovations that changed how surgery is performed. In 1927, Bovey and Cushing translated electrocautery into the operating room, providing the ability to control bleeding and significantly decreasing surgical morbidity and mortality. Cushing's contemporary, Walter Dandy, collaborating with General Electric, had brought the headlight into the operating room. A light bulb hinged to a coat hanger, providing illumination of the surgical site. For reference, this is Harvey Cushing's operating room today that shows the convergence of various imaging technologies and people into the surgical space. I am particularly proud of the intraoperative MRI based on a movable, ceiling-mounted 3 Tesla magnet developed here in Calgary in collaboration with National Research Council Canada. This slide shows the force sensors developed for Neuroarm by ATI North Carolina. 2 nano titanium force sensors are in contact with the end effector tool, providing for the first time the ability to measure tool tissue interaction forces during the performance of microsurgery. Furthermore, this force sensing capability allowed creation of virtual fixtures for increased safety and performance, whereby a surgeon encounters increasing resistance as the boundary or no-go zone is approached.
Okay,
Go back one.
I found this on the web for surgeon encounters increasing resistance as the boundary or no-go zone is approached.
Back.
Check it out.
Sorry. Go forward. Forward. A very important feature of this robotic system is the ability to scale force in addition to motion. Next. And why is this important? It has been shown using surgical simulators that greater than 50% of surgical error results from the inappropriate exertion of force. It has been estimated that surgical error costs, the American healthcare system some $1.7 billion per annum. Obviously, preventing surgical error would have a tremendous impact, not only on the person so afflicted, but also on healthcare economics. We have shown that experienced and novice surgeons exhibit distinctly different force profiles. For a given task, an experienced surgeon uses predictable and consistent force. A novice surgeon, on the other hand, uses high force, low force, and variable force. We showed that high force is often associated with bleeding, low force with the need to repeat the surgical task, and force variability with both bleeding and the need to repeat the task. Next. In this illustrative case, I show the resection of a brain arteriovenous malformation performed by me. When I used low forces in the coagulation of feeding, draining vessels to the malformation, less than 0.4 newtons. Bleeding was rarely encountered. When, however, the force increased, here approaching 0.6 newtons, brisk bleeding was encountered. That may be a problem as a surgeon has to chase the bleeding vessel into the adjacent brain, possibly causing damage and hence surgical error. Indeed, the technology now includes a force error warning feature. Next. This radar plot again reemphasizes the difference between experienced, intermediate, and novice surgeons. The more experienced a surgeon becomes, the more consistent and less variable the forces become. We have gone on to translate this knowledge onto or into a common surgical tool, bipolar forceps. We first demonstrated through finite element analysis the ideal location for strain gauge sensors. Partnering with Bissinger, Germany, the forces are calibrated during and after manufacture. It also now includes a unique RFID, such that each time it is used, an intelligent software interface recognizes the technology. We have submitted a US patent and have conducted both preclinical and clinical validation. This is the Smart Forceps product that includes sensorized bipolar forceps, a custom-made signal conditioning unit designed and manufactured by my engineering team here in Calgary, and an important part of the system, an intuitive operating room user interface. Next. Our AI engineers are currently developing a machine learning algorithm that is able to recognize surgical tasks, surgeons by skill level, and their force profile towards improving the safety of surgery and standardization of surgical care. Next slide. In this metrics, we again found that force profile was different for different tasks, and they were different between expert, shown in green, and novice surgeons, shown in purple. Here is a surgical performance dashboard comparing one of my residents, purple, against me, green. In the top panel, the resident's task performance duration is shorter than mine, which is great. On the top right, her range of forces are lower than mine, i.e., she is more gentle. On the bottom left, her force variability is greater than mine, and on the bottom right, her force uncertainty index is also a little greater than mine. In this technology, the surgeon, who is now finishing residency training, is able for the first time to visualize and compare their performance indices with those of their mentors. Indeed, next slide, it is now possible, as again my team here in Calgary has developed a secure app allowing the force data uploaded in the cloud to be accessed on their smartphones. Next slide. Now to the next generation robotics, Neuroarm Plus. This is the recently developed microsurgery specific haptic hand controller based on in-depth analysis and review of existing haptic devices. In telesurgery, the workstation is perhaps the most important interface that allows intimate interaction with the remote robot. As there is no off-the-shelf workstation for microsurgery, we spent years in designing and manufacturing of this new prototype hand controller, itself a robot that allows a large dexterous workspace and includes an original formula that we call dexterous conditioning index. Emmett Rezi, my chief engineer, had a hard time convincing reviewers on this achievement. Next. To enrich surgeons' experience and performance at the workstation, he further gave an end effector that mimics wrist and finger motion and includes a surgical tool mated to the one attached to the end effector at the remote site. Next. Then we recognize the importance of comparing performance of this hand controller relative to other available off-the-shelf haptic devices. This further led us to evaluate user behavior and technique in handling a haptic device. The equations show the importance of examining both the user and the device. Details of this report can be found in the reference manuscript, first authored by our chief engineer. Then we went on to bring the surgeons over for a true technology assessment. These were the various training levels and experience. The surgeons were of various training levels and experience and specialties. Experienced surgeons worked well within the microsurgery workspace, had increased wrist motion, less air, and faster completion times when performing a peg and place task. Details are in this manuscript, first authored by our postdoctoral colleague, an expert in data science. We further confirmed that the hand controller so developed and built, called Neuroarm Plus, was preferred over the other studied haptic devices. As we in the world move forward with robotics and automation, a number of challenges remain. Overcoming these challenges will, however, result in an intelligent robot, perhaps even capable of self-propagation in the future. While this slide is busy, through Neuroarm Plus, we will create the Internet of Operating Theater, a digital operating room, by advancing 4 interrelated elements, utilizing sensors and sensing to quantify the elements of surgery, display and augmented data at an ergonomic user interface, uploading the data for cloud computing and feedback to the surgeon, establishing a professional social network for improved learning and performance. In late 2017, I participated in a Senate committee report on healthcare. The report concluded that the future of medicine will very much rely on advances in robotics, AI, and 3D printing, all of which are elements of our Neuroarm Plus robot and the autonomous system initiatives here in Alberta. Thank you.